It looked like it wanted to, and then it stopped. Oh, now it's working.
Here we go. We just had to do that
Okay.
again. Let me just check and make sure it's coming through on your end. How long was the drive back yesterday, by the way? It was like from Schilling, it was like 3 hours.
It was about two and a half for me, I think.
Yeah. Oh, I see something going on. It looks like we're going. So, hey everyone. Guess what? It's that time of the day again. Or that time of the week. We're living free and we're ranting, and we're doing all that for your distinct viewing pleasure. You're welcome, by the way. I don't know if I hear enough thank you from you ungrateful audience, but it's not a living. It's a thing we do. It's a steam off blowing. So as usual, of course, I'm joined by my lovely co-host Chris Bateman, and we just came back from the, I don't know, it was like the 16th annual or something like that, annual Porcupine Freedom Festival, also known as Porcfest. Also known.
17. This was this was Porcfest 17.
Okay, well, there's
Yeah,
been
and
two.
I don't know if you can hear the hammering above me. I apologize. They're doing some renovations on the floor
They
right
are,
above
and
where
it's
I
not.
am
It's
today.
not you.
It's not me. It's not me. This is at the in between level between the basement and the second floor, and that's owned by somebody else. And somebody else is doing some work there, and I
Yeah.
can hear it. So I don't know if you can, but that's what that is. So I'll just have to at some point I'll have to do the Lawrence O'Donnell and just start screaming about stop the hammering.
Stop the hammering. Get off my lawn, which, conveniently enough, is the subject of this whole thing. So, we went up to the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which is in its 17th annual iteration. And basically, for those uninitiated, it's just Libertarian Camp Fest. You just go up there to a campground, hang out. There's some speakers, there's some workshops, but mostly a lot of people just love to hang out and sell things to each other without a permit. Sometimes with a permit, but let's be honest. Use cryptocurrencies, use precious metals, stuff like that. Carry like a holy yeet storm of firepower around, and per use all the recreational substances they tend to want to. Which I think the largest amount is booze, followed by probably marijuana, and then there's a few others. And that, as far as like the ones like cocaine and heroin, I've never heard any like mention of anything like that in all the years, even in the wilder early days. So, and particularly this one, because of the whole COVID situation, was sort of last minute, and it was very kind of user deployed. Everyone sort of came and did their own thing and made it happen. And the tickets were extremely cheap. And because of that, there was well over 1,000 people, from what I heard, that came over the course of the week, mostly over the weekend days. And so, yeah, it was a good time, wasn't it?
I had a good. So this is the third one that I've been to, three in a row. I hadn't heard of it before. 2 years ago was the first one, and boy, am I disappointed I didn't hear about it earlier. But also, I'm glad because if I was there at the early Wilder days when I was young and wild, things could be different. So no, I go. I was there with my 3-year-old, almost 3-year-old, Wednesday through yesterday, and my wife came up with our 9-month-old and joined us on Saturday for the last day and night. And overall, it was pretty great. I liked this year's model better than the two previous years. Normally there's like the three event tents set up on the field, and then you have other stuff going on at the pavilion, and you're rushing around from event to event to event, and you're crazy busy. And I feel like this year was a little bit more relaxed. I got to hang out with a lot of people and talk to a lot of people, and it was much more decentralized, which kind of is like the whole purpose almost, right? So it was pretty great. I enjoyed it. I'm glad there was no VIP tent because last year I had like 5 consecutive hangovers, and I didn't have that this year.
Wow.
um, so yeah, no, I don't know. You had a good time. What time you came up on? What, Friday?
Yes. It was Friday through Saturday and left early Sunday. I don't think we went back to the campground on Sunday, so mostly Friday, Saturday. It was nice. Showed up. It was good to not work because every single other pork fest I've been working the whole time, or a big chunk of the time. This time was just for enjoyment, although I did get an interview in. Shout out to Josh Sigurdsson. Thank you very much. So, just, and for the most part, not a lot of shenanigans. And it kind of made me remember, it was very similar to the past ones in a way that reminds you that, hey, guess what? A lot of people are not afraid of mass contagion. Now, mask participation there was about 3 to 5 people wearing masks over there. And that's about it. And they were not heckled. They did not heckle, give other people dirty looks. And everything was peaceful. One of them did go to during the soapbox idol segment, jumped up on the soapbox and gave a little question/rant about, I think I should, what's the deal with masks kind of thing. And people were just like very respectful. And anyway, I think it's going to be interesting to see the aftermath of this, but I highly doubt we're going to see any kind of like what one would call consequence, people gathering en masse and not wearing the sacred covering of holy protection.
Yeah, I don't think we will either. I mean, we had an event. I guess it was. Let me see. It was almost 3.5 weeks. It was 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so 3.5 weeks ago on June 6th. I just published a little story about it today on GraniteRock.com. We had the annual candidate fundraising tailgater at the home of Jess Edwards, state representative from Auburn. This is the third one of those that I've been to also. And there were at least 300 people that, came in and out during that event. And in the 3.5 weeks since, not one of those people, to my knowledge, has tested positive for the Wu flu. So,
Wu flu. Yeah, it's been pretty crazy to see, especially because down where we're at, or specifically where I'm at here in this coastal area of New Hampshire, is where there's a larger concentration of actual cases. There's been a few people, mostly in homes, but then again, not exclusively, who've had some kind of a thing. People here tend to be very relaxed. And of course, I've covered in previous videos, whether it was on this thing or not, that the mask is like the MAGA hat of the left. It's a highly political type symbol. People are always posting in their profile pictures, taking selfies with it. They're just very like mask, like showing it off. It's a very show off thing, which is not a commentary on its effectiveness or lack thereof. Either way, it just tends to be that way. And Dover, where I'm at, is in the whole area, let's be honest, around here is pretty left leaning. Yet people are pretty chill. Like I go to a little farm stand down there. The owners and employees don't always wear. You go to the coffee shop. Sometimes people on staff seem to be wearing them, but then you see the owner or other staff people just walk in without one and just, when they're kind of semi off duty or whatever. And then as far as like the actual people that go there, like a percentage wear masks, like maybe a third at most. It just seems very chill around here. But then in Coos County, way up north where Porcfest was, man, people were crazy. There was, so one coffee shop we went to was just fine. There was a couple people who had masks on. The business did not care or require anything. But unfortunately, they were closed on Sunday, so we were forced to go across the street to a bakery that not only were they absolutely requiring masks, but they had everyone wait like 30 feet outside or something like that. And only one person could enter the building with a mask at a time. And I'm like, I'm not going through that kind of, dehumanizing thing just to get a morning coffee. So we went to another place, which was a similar kind of a thing. And we had, there's like they turned the whole inside cafe into like just a walk-up window. And so I'm like, all right, that's fine. Except it would not talk to you if you didn't have a mask on when you went to the walk-up window. So one is like right before my turn to go. I just went boom, put one on, and then still annoying that it's like extremely like sensitive in a county that, as far as I know, only had how many COVID cases were in Coos County?
Last I checked, it was like one.
One active or one total?
I think it was one active. So I can try to pull it up. Let me see. if I recall correctly. Well, I mean, if it's below 5, they won't show you, and everything's town by town now. So for all of Coos County, there is between 1 and 4 cases up in Pittsburgh, which is the entire landmass on the Canadian border.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of I think it's one of I think it's the geographically largest town in New Hampshire, and they have between 1 and 4 total, and that's it for Coos County,
Mm-hmm.
as far as I can tell. Let me see if I can pull it up a different way,
Yeah, so basically, it's one of the least
which will make
affected
it more clear.
regions in the entire state, yet has some of the more hyperactive people, which doesn't make sense. But I will do the defense, the Karen defense or whatever, in defense of Karen in this case. It is people live here in Dover. Like no one lives up north. I mean, there's a few, but there's a few people that live up north. But most of the people that are frequenting these businesses are out of towners, in a lot of cases, out of staters or out of countryers, seeing how close it is to Canada. And so they're kind of more paranoid about random people just like coming on through, bringing whatever nonsense diseases they have with them. And so it makes a little bit more sense why they'd be more wary than just like, I walk a block or two to get coffee, and then it's like, oh yeah, I live there, and like you know who I am, you know who everyone is. Yeah, you're fine. Rather than just like I don't know what some. And to be honest, to a certain extent, if some like random car full of like weird looking New Yorkers pulled up and just came out, went to the coffee shop I'm in, I would get a slight bit tense. Not for any rational reason necessarily, but just like I don't know, like in this time when there's a lot of apocalyptic stuff going on down there, and there's people they're coming all the way up here, I'd be like, oh, I understand the feeling. I probably wouldn't do anything about it like the businesses up north have, but still, I kind of more understand.
Yeah, I don't know. If everybody, private business, and I said this from the beginning, a private business has absolutely every right to impose the safety measures that they want. And then the people that patronize those businesses are free to either go there or go somewhere else. And, like you said, I saw a few people wearing the mask at Porcfest. I saw a few people wearing there was an extra bracelet you could wear. It was like the social distancing bracelet. It was orange, and it kind of blended in with the yellow one, but most people wearing masks were also wearing the orange bracelet. So it was kind of easy to know that. And I was at one of the talks, and it was in the pavilion,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a gentleman in a seat, and he had separated his chair from the next chair by a full chair's width, so he wanted to social distance a little bit more. And I knew somebody sitting right next to him, and to get to my friend who I saw, and I was like, "Oh, hey, I'm glad you're here." Blah blah blah. I had to walk by the guy wearing the mask, so I just said to him, "I said, do you mind if I walk by you real quick?" And he said, "Yeah, no problem. Thank you for asking." And we went about our business. I said hi real quick, and I got out of there and respected his social distancing,
Mm-hmm.
because that's like the true nature of liberty, right? Is I have the right to be me, and you have the right to be you, and we just respect each other's wishes, right? Like if you want to social distance, I'm not going to impose myself into your space and
Yeah.
violate your space like that. Uh,
People
and
get crazy
you,
about this stuff, which is
yeah,
funny on
it's not.
which on both sides. I'm more than willing to be fair to both sides. Had a lot of people hurl insults at me if I just try to talk about the issue, about the politicization of the issue, or if people just say, do you wear what? If not, you're an asshole, kind of stuff. I've been attacked on that side exclusively, but I have seen people on the other side who don't want to wear a mask, and they feel entitled to do that in other people's property against their direct wishes. So, for example, go into a store. There's this hilarious video, which I should have queued up to play or whatever, of some guy in Florida, in a Florida Walmart, who's just trying to go in there without a mask, and then an employee with a mask like blocks him and just says, "No, you can't enter without a mask." And he just like does this mad, like it's like he's trying to flee the Titanic or something. It's like he's like fighting the guy off, trying to just absolutely break into the Walmart, and he does, and a bunch of employees quarter him. It's just like, dude, go someplace that doesn't require a mask if you care so much about this, or just wear one and think it's stupid on your way in. It's not like you're going to die. But you know what's really funny about that video? After a few viewings, someone else pointed out to me that there was a couple of Walmart employees in the back who didn't have masks on. So it's like, what the hell then? Like, why? It's just an entirely ridiculous situation.
Right. So I mean, it's like I was talking about. Like Walmart is private property,
Mm-hmm.
and they have every right. It's the right of association or freedom of association cuts both ways, right? So and this goes back to like the baker and the cake, right? The and in my opinion, the baker should not have to bake a cake for a wedding that he doesn't support. And that, I mean, it shouldn't have anything to do with gay or not gay or whatever. I mean, that was his basis for not particularly not supporting that wedding and not wanting
Mm-hmm.
to make the cake. But I mean, you could cut that across any particular issue, really. Like, all right, so I own a business and I don't want anybody in my business wearing masks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, don't come in here wearing a mask. Like it's my business. Or on the other side, if I own a business and I want everybody to wear a mask, it's still my business. It's my property. You have to follow my rules if you want to come in. And now, of course, you get like the ADA and HIPAA, and it's like, okay, well, ADA says I can't deny you service because of a disability. So if you have this disability and you can't wear a mask, and I read there was a law review article about it, basically summing up the ADA issues with the masks. And if you are denied service because of it, then it's like that. So you like if for example, I didn't want you in my business not wearing a mask.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can say I'll serve you on the sidewalk, or I'll bring it to your car,
Mm-hmm.
or you can buy online and you can get it delivered and all of that. Um, so that's like so ADA is not a real thing. You can't like sue somebody for making you wear a mask. Just go somewhere else. Just respect their business. There's a comment in our chat on it says Walmart is a publicly traded company. Well, a publicly traded company is still a private business. Publicly
Mm-hmm.
traded just means there's a ton of owners, right? Anybody that owns stock is a shareholder in the ownership of Walmart, and they have a right so under the articles of incorporation, whoever owns stock gets to vote on the board of directors, and the board of directors choose the CEO, and the CEO controls the private business. It's still a private
Yes.
business. Publicly traded does not mean it's a public business. It means there's a ton of private owners of that business, and they elect the board of directors. And if they disagree with the board of directors and what they're doing, then they can vote them out at the next shareholder meeting, or they can pressure the board of directors to fire the CEO. And if you get
Mm-hmm.
enough backlash, then the board of directors is just going to fire the CEO on their own anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So the point being is just respect private property. And if somebody puts up a sign and says you have to wear a mask to enter, then either go somewhere else or wear the mask,
Yeah.
like you said.
And
You know, that's part of liberty. That's part of private property ownership. That's part of freedom, is respecting the freedom and the liberties of other people and other private property owners to do what they wish, whether or not you disagree with it.
yeah, and that's where the difference comes in, where you have a lot of people who are, would say, hey, well, aren't you just saying we shouldn't have to wear around, we shouldn't have to, all this stuff? Well, it's like, okay, if a government decides on a rule and just says now no one can do this or everyone has to do that, they're deciding for us and our own lives and our own property and things like that, which is not cool. It's not theirs. They don't get to decide that, in my view. Now, a lot of people do view everyone as property of the government and everything is property of the government, which I think is a really terrifying prospect. We don't believe that around here, but and to a certain extent, my whole well, what one could call rebelliousness, my whole just like, I don't want to do that, around here is significantly different when I travel to different countries with different sets of laws and stuff like that. I tend to be much less anarcho-libertarian there because, first off, it's not good to get into a foreign prison. That's not good. But also because you voluntarily chose to go into an area with different rules and beliefs and stuff like that, and if you decide to not go by those, that is kind of like, well, you don't have to travel outside your own home anyway. But also also you don't know if the local populace is in favor of those things or not. So it's not like for example, here I am the local populace here. If I don't like what the government's trying to tell me to do, then I have every right to go rabble against that stuff. But like if I go to another country and just assume, yeah, they don't like what if they're all in favor of that? What if they actually agree regardless of a government law existing or not? What if they actually agree? So that is that kind of like little hair split. But basically it's get off my lawn. And it depends on like what's your lawn. Now, public versus private determines what is your lawn. And of course that brings us to our first story of the day, which is have you kept up on the whole St. Louis armed standoff thing?
I've seen memes of it. I haven't.
So you're completely
immersed
up to
myself
date, then.
in
That's
the,
good.
the story.
All you need.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's how everybody gets news, right? You just need to just read the memes, as long as they're not put out by the left.
But have you not heard that the left can't meme? All the memes.
I have heard. And I saw your meme this morning about it. So
just walls of text and things like that, which annoys me to no end. If I try to have a decent conversation with someone and then they're just like, well, giant novel. It's like that's not how people talk. Anyway, there was a couple in St. Louis. There was a group of protesters heading towards, I believe, the governor's mansion, trying to protest of BLM protesters. And on the way, after like breaking down the gate into this private community and stuff, one of the neighbors and his wife popped out on the porch, brandishing guns, saying, "Get out of here!" Basically, get off my lawn. Get out of here. And there's a kind of the memes are sort of lit. I will display the one right here. This is my favorite one. The GTA Grand Theft Auto St. Louis Rockstar Games. It's perfect. It is perfection in a meme. I'm thankful for it. But basically, the backlash against these individuals, other than poor trigger discipline, and obviously the lady doesn't know how to use a gun and could endanger people by doing so, which is just not cool. The criticism is there's peaceful protesters exercising their right to peacefully protest, and they're just going on their way, and you are literally pointing a machine of death and destruction at them for their peaceful protest. And you could harm them. You could kill them even. And this is not cool at all. That's threatening violence against peaceful people. That's what a lot of libertarians hate about the government. And here they are doing this. Now, there's where the hair split comes in. I believe this was a private property, a private residence, a gated community. I believe they broke down the gate to the gated community. They didn't just trespass, but they damaged property in trespassing. And I believe, So
what you're saying is they violently entered somebody else's property without permission?
Yes.
Okay.
And then the people were defending their property with threat of deadly force, and it seems to have worked. It seems like their place was not ransacked. I don't know if it was going to be. Who knows? But the funny thing, the way where there's this bit of confusion here is, first off, when you have a private community, I mean, a lot of times if you're walking down a public street and there's houses on the street, private property is when you go onto the person's lawn, hence get off my lawn. That's where private property is. And so if someone's just walking down your street and then you're getting angry, they're protesting on my street, I want them off my street. Well, it's not your street, it's a public street. But in this case, had the semblance of a public street except for a gate, which I have a hard time like getting over, like just wrecking of a gate to get in there is like you shouldn't be in there kind of thing. And people will take, but pretend the gate wasn't there. It's still like, all right, there's a sign that says this is like a normal street. However, it is not. You may not come here unless you live here or have a permission from the people who live here. Now, the people defending this street with their gats and threat of yeet were not owners of the entire community. They were protectors of their own property. Now, here's the hair split again is do they have the right to defend other people's property without the consent of other people? Are they defending their own property? It gets a little murkier there, but generally speaking, I don't think there was an invitation from other people in this community, certainly not the governor, to just say, "Hey, yeah, come in here, and if the gate's not using, if the gate's still locked, then just break it down. We'll get a new one. We're rich enough." Like, again, the gate part is really the key in this whole thing.
I mean, we're talking about the hair splitting thing again.
Yes.
In homeowners association, gated communities are typically like a cost sharing kind of arrangement. So you don't outright own outside of your 4 walls or 900 walls. In the case of that mansion, that was a big place there in front of. But you are a part owner in it. You get a vote on the homeowners association. It's your property to the extent that you get to vote for the board of directors and the CEO and stuff like that. Like we were kind of talking about with Walmart. So now, like on the flip side, so like if you own Walmart stock, Walmart doesn't automatically become your property, right? It's the property of a voluntary group of people that collected together to own Walmart, essentially, right? But you can't just be like, well, I'm a part owner of Walmart, and you just go in and start changing store policy. It's not the way it works. So technically, they're just defending. I mean, they didn't like go out to the road and start assaulting people. However, they are exhibiting extremely poor firearm safety.
Yeah.
Right. Rule number one is you always pretend a firearm's loaded, right? Even if it's not. Like you check, you verify, and it's still loaded.
I'm guessing these were loaded.
I'm gonna guess that they are, but I'm not gonna. Whatever. There might be one in the chamber. There might not. Blah blah blah. But still, a firearm's always loaded. That's like firearm safety rule. Number 2 is you don't point it at anything that you don't want to blow up. So,
let's split hairs on 1, 2. If you aren't ready to yeet, if you aren't ready to get the yeeting on, then don't point. Doesn't mean you.
Right, so that's number 2.
I would point a gun at someone who I absolutely did not want to kill. That I would be prepared to. That's
all right. So that's you don't point it at something you're not prepared to blow up, right? If you're not ready to yeet, don't point it at them. And number 3 is you keep your booger hook off the bang switch until you are ready to yeet.
You hear that, Karen? Or whoever.
So get your finger off of the trigger, lady. So this was like a kind of weird situation because I think that she has every right to be on her front lawn with a firearm to protect her home, her property, and her life from. They call themselves peaceful protesters, but if you rip down a gate violently and enter a place that you don't have permission to be, you are no longer.
You weren't there. You don't know if they did it peacefully. They might have just
carefully take they just carefully they carefully unscrewed the gate and took it down. No, if you rip down a gate and you weren't invited to be there, then you're trespassing, you're violently trespassing, you're breaking and entering. They have every lawful right to defend their property. And they have every moral right to defend their property, which is more important than lawful, right? Because
I would think so. Not everyone thinks that, but I do.
Right. So in New Hampshire, what they're doing is completely legal. They're pointing it at people, completely legal. Brandishing firearms, completely legal because they feel that they can defend their property that way, right? They feel that there is an active threat against them, and they're protecting themselves against that. Completely legal. I don't know how the law is in Missouri, but it doesn't matter. It's moral. They have a moral right to be doing what they're doing, but it's still stupid. Don't point the gun. Don't point guns at people. If you want to stand on your front lawn and have the AR-15 strapped to your chest, or even get in the full kit and be a boog boy or whatever, that's fine too. But like the way she's like waving around, it looks like a Walther PPK kind of thing, a James Bond kind of gun.
She probably has a martini in the other hand for all we know.
Well, good for her. But so my point is just don't point your guns at people.
Generally speaking, don't ever point guns at people
unless you're ready to use it.
Yes. Yeah. So there is another edge to this, which is another side to this, which is the governor is living here in this private gated community, and by doing so is to a certain extent endangering the people living there, because this person, here we go, oh, listen, hear me out. I don't think that the governor should be evicted. However, if you're the governor and you're making a bunch of, nonsense laws or whatever, you're commanding police departments or whatever, you're doing stuff that is causing like a public outcry like that. It is kind of a dick move to also be hiding in a mansion in a gated community where, now it doesn't mean you shouldn't have the right to do so. I just think it's kind of mean to be there, and then you have a bunch of protesters and picketers that get sort of inflicted upon your neighbors, even though again they don't have the right to beat down the gate or anything like that. They don't have the right to be there, but it would kind of happen. I would be like, look, you know what, Governor, you're a little bit too hot. Why don't you get your own house outside of here? Which is one of the reasons why I say they make the president live in the White House, is because they're like, people are going to be really upset with you over stuff on a routine basis, probably. And they're going to go want to picket in front of where you live. And we're going to make you live here so that our neighborhoods get left alone by everyone who's pissed off at you.
Yeah, but we're going down a really stupid path, right?
Probably.
Like, all right, so the president lives in the White House and has Secret Service details and all that stuff because other presidents have been killed or threatened to be killed or attempted to be killed. Or, I mean, there's been 4 presidents assassinated, I believe, and there have been numerous other attempts. Ronald Reagan was shot. I think he was the most recent, like, credible threat. Like, somebody actually shot him outside of one of his events, and before that JFK was shot, and we all know that was in 1963.
Also an eagle tried to munch Trump. That was pretty recent.
I don't remember that, but that's fine. I mean, whatever, like, they don't really force the president to live in the White House. Secret Service can't force the president to live in the White House. I think every president since, I mean, who knows when, like the mid 1800s at least, lived in the White House. And that's, I mean, there's multiple reasons, right? Because presidents come from all across the country and all the governing happens in the District of Columbia.
Yes.
But like, I mean, Trump goes to his private resorts literally all the time. He calls it the Southern White House, or Mar-a-Lago, whatever. And there's other people that live in those communities, and Secret Service just goes everywhere, and you're not allowed to like boat by certain places or fly a plane over it. And
which kind of sucks. You got to think about it.
Yeah.
Like, what if you?
I mean, if I lived there, I'd be pissed. I'd be like,
Yeah.
what the frick? You just like stay in DC for 4 years and 8 years, and just, I don't know. Like, we don't want all this. But so I don't. When we start putting more and more politicians into these separate, like, politicians should be of the people, right? So like in New Hampshire, Governor Chris Sununu lives in, I mean, we have a governor's mansion in New Hampshire, but it's not really like a mansion. First of all, it's kind of like a normal house that's been restored a couple times, so it's pretty nice, but it's not like a mansion. You wouldn't be like, wow, that's a mansion. So it's called the Bridges House. It's up in Concord, like a couple exits north of the State House. And there was a governor from Coos County, last name Bridges, that's why it's the Bridges House, who got sick of like traveling 2.5 hours to go to work every day, and he was like, I'm just going to buy a house in Concord. And then when he passed, the family donated it to the state of New Hampshire, and it's been the quote unquote unofficial governor's mansion since then. A couple of governors have like stayed there. I don't think anybody's actually lived there. I had somebody corrected me on a comment thread a couple weeks ago about this, but there might have been one governor that actually lived there, but that's not. But like, if you start removing politicians from the community, then we're going to end up with more and more politics like we have now, where like DC doesn't listen to anybody else in the rest of the country, right? They kind of do like this big national, like they're all just like whatever, like, like the House of Representatives is not very representative.
Of course.
There's only like a very few who like actually try to whatever. And then the Senate has become this complete like political machine ever since the 17th Amendment, which allowed for the direct election of senators. And we keep removing politicians from the people, and we're going to get worse and worse, more nationalized policy, more centralized government, bigger government. So, like, all right, so the governor lives in this McMansion inside a gated community. Well, if that's who's this governor? This is Missouri.
Oh, I think so.
I
To
don't
be
know who the
fair,
governor.
people, do your own research. We are not a heavily researched podcast. We're a heavily ranted podcast, and act accordingly.
So whatever, like the governor can live there, and the other people. So I mean, there was like a talk at Porcfest about this, like right, like policing and protection and how they should be different. So in a gated community like that, well, if you know the governor lives there and you're worried about peaceful protesters, you can hire a private security firm.
Yeah.
It could be like a group of 3%ers from whatever, or it could be, an actual legit security firm, or just if you don't feel secure enough in your neighborhood, you can hire a private security firm. And then of course, we're all responsible for our own protection at the very base level, right? And so these people were obviously prepared to protect themselves. It doesn't look like they were trained to protect themselves, but
Or
they
at
were
least,
prepared.
At least one of them.
So they,
I didn't pay too much attention outside of that picture to what the man was doing in that situation. But and by the way, it could be that he was, and then she wasn't. But because things got real, just like, here, hold this, go for it, whatever. Which, by the way, I have a funny anecdote about that stuff. Many years ago, my uncle was renting a house from. It was owned as one of the many properties owned by a certain Dick Cheney, and my uncle was a very lefty person, but he just was renting his house because he liked it and he liked to live there. And I don't know if it was, it might have been like an indirect ownership. It was one of those things where like Dick Cheney's never been there, but he has it, and somehow like the local activist mobs figured out that he added some kind of ownership on the house. So they're going and protesting in front of this house in the morning. And my uncle's working late and stuff. He get woken up by this mob of people that believed what he believed politically. And they're just waking him up because it was like Dick Cheney's house or something. They didn't realize he didn't live in the middle of New Mexico. Like, what are you doing? And he get all, oh, here they come down the road again to like protest this like random piece of real estate and annoy sadden the poor person who lives there. So yeah, there's always a lot of externalities. The point in going to someone's house to protest is they can't avoid you. It's not like the office where they'll work from home for a while, or the other poor people there have to deal with it, or just like the security detail. It's like you're making us personally suffer in some way, allegedly. So we're going to make you personally inconvenienced and deal with this as a person face to face. That's kind of the point of doing that. But please make sure, bless you, please make sure it's not, first off, it's just actually the person's house that they live there. And second, just make sure you know that the neighbors might be annoyed too. They might be like, get away, we live here too.
Well, I'm going to go further than that. I'm going to just
Okay.
say, don't protest politicians at their homes.
Ah.
It's like, to me, it's out of bounds. Their families live there. Their kids live there. Their animals live there. Like, there are other people besides the person that is elected that lives there. And there are better ways to do that. And like, if we just start protesting outside politicians' homes, the whole social system is going to devolve very quickly, right?
Yeah.
I remember when the reopen thing was going on, people were like, oh, we should protest outside of Sununu's house. And I was like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. He lives in a nice little community where other families live, and his wife and children live there. And that's not like acceptable behavior for a civilized society, right? Like, if you don't like him, vote against him, or vote for somebody else, or write him a letter, or go to the state house, or call him. Well, I mean, like, everybody in the state has his cell phone number. I'm sure I'm not going to give it to you, but like, if there's
And that's
other
a very
ways.
New Hampshire situation, by the way, which is what I love about this place. It's not common that most governors would just comment on your stuff on Facebook, which, by the way, if you tag him in this live feed that's going to your Facebook right now, he'll probably like it and answer and stuff, which is crazy because it's New Hampshire. But now the little slight point of disagreement is, generally speaking, I agree. However, at some point, I do believe in that when there is no ability to, or there is no perceived ability to exact the change you want, that sometimes you have to be a little bit more direct. Now, as far as like, I don't like this guy, I can vote him out, and there's enough people who don't like him and can vote him out. That's different because that's pretty easy. If it would be something, like where this person is directly involved in the harming and killing people through some sort of executive order or something, and sometimes it isn't in a time frame where you can just wait for him to be voted out and hope things will be better. And,
well,
it's egregious enough.
That's the
right?
exception, right? Like,
Yes.
so if he had the National Guard going around, like rounding up, we'll use World War II.
Mm-hmm.
If he has like the National Guard going around and rounding up like Japanese people,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
That's
now
pretty crazy.
I mean, we're talking about a different story, right? Like, because he's actually aggressing force against his own people and violating like not only his oath of office, but like the government exists to protect the rights of the individual citizen, and that's a direct contravention of that,
Yeah.
right? So like, in some cases, which if he was actively harming like other citizens of this state, like actively harming, not like
Yeah, and that's another one of those
harming,
things.
not like, all right, well he signed this bill that allows transgender people to use the bathroom. Like that's not an active threat.
Yeah,
Again,
and
like,
that's
you
what
can
I'm
remove
saying.
yourself
This
from the
thing
bathroom.
has to be used like judiciously. Like it obviously it's it's a second to last resort. The absolute last resort is armed revolution, of course. At the very end of everything, if your survival and freedom depends on it, and there's no other way, that's where you get to. But before then, you might as well yell at him at his house. Now,
but there's other steps before that too, right? So like,
it's
be
way
clear,
down
I'm
the
not
list.
saying I'm still not saying go protest outside of politicians' houses. I still think that's pretty shitty behavior.
Yes, and it's
go to the state house, go to public places, write the letters, go to the legislature. Like all of these people that are upset about a lot of things. Like I hardly ever actually do anything about it.
Yes,
but like if you like skip from like step 0 to step 100, which is protesting at the governor's house, then you're just a crappy individual. Write a letter to your representative, call your representative, write a letter to the governor, call the governor, write a letter.
And that's like step 2, possibly. Step 1 is complaining about it on Twitter and tag them in it, maybe.
No, don't do that.
But so as far
that doesn't count as doing anything. Like ranting on Twitter and Facebook doesn't actually count as activism. Like I promise you, it does not. Because you're either talking to your echo chamber or you're talking to a bunch of people that don't give a fuck.
Of course. Now, also, I should point out that, in my view, when you're using more aggressive measures, especially that it has to be something serious where it's like your actual life, liberty, and property are at risk, and therefore you're putting pressure against someone who's doing this to you. Not just, I don't like the guy and I disagree with him. So, for example, if your
life, liberty, or property was in danger, that's different. So, but like, I'm just going to throw this out there because protesting outside of a politician's house is probably the least effective thing you could do, unless you're there to like actually burn it down. Right.
Well, or
like just protesting outside of the house, like turns off all of the normal people in society because you're like, that's shitty. Like if people did that at my house, I'd be pissed.
Well, that's the thing is that's not something that's done as just a part of political discourse. I don't think that's political discourse anymore. That's political ultimatum. And that's not even so much political at that point as it is almost like a self-defense level, which is why, for example, you love Hillary, whatever, you voted for, I didn't say you did, I'm not going to say such mean things to a friend, but then Trump gets in and people hate him, they don't like that he's, doing these things on immigration, they don't like the tariff stuff, they don't like that he said mean things on Twitter, whatever they don't like about him. Okay, don't harass him at his home because you just don't like him, especially because half the country loves him probably for that, or let's be honest, probably most 20% love him, 20% hate him, and the rest of us just don't care as much or are somewhere in between. But don't, not after that. But that, or because he voted, he said this mean thing. But if someone is, say, as you said, deploying the National Guard to do something, they're hurting your stuff, they're doing something directly, and it's no longer a political discourse issue where you're trying to get your political will by being more loud and more aggressive and more of an asshole about it, let's be honest, you're trying to get that imposed on other people who disagree with you. I'm not talking about the governor here or the president or whoever, about the other people who support them by just bullying them at their house. That's not cool. Unless they're ruining your life. It's an act of self-defense or something. And then, in which case, then you can ratchet up the heat a little bit, and yelling at them at their house is much preferred to just like deploying the killdozer right away. Like that's a little much. But anyway, that's a long ramble on that thing. Let's get to, we're talking about free speech and political speech. And have you joined Parler yet?
I have not. I'm resisting because
You're
well,
stop resisting.
I was resisting because like for one, I don't need any more social media in my life.
You probably need a lot less.
I need a lot less. So joining another one would probably like make my wife divorce me. To be honest.
Yeah.
So like I've quit like Instagram and Snapchat. I use very very rarely. I just don't have time. I don't have time. I'm on Facebook way too much. It's really a disease. Like I need to tone down the Facebooking. But a lot of stuff I do on there is for work. So yeah.
Same here. I need social media for work,
whatever.
but
I wish I could quit, but I can't. I have a hate relationship with social media.
Yes.
But I'm there anyway. So no, I have not joined Parler, even though like people keep asking me to. Oh, you should get on Parler, and I'm like, it sounds like Twitter with extra steps. So
yeah,
not yet.
I'm there because I'm everywhere.
Twitter, if I could rage quit Twitter and just do Parler, I would probably do it. But I'm still going to be on Twitter too because there's more people there.
Yeah, it's probably Twitter is if you quit. I don't think there's any good reason to quit Twitter if you have not been moderated or censored or anything at all, because Twitter is pretty permissive with what, again, you can still put porn on Twitter for crying out loud. It's still pretty permissive of what you do. There are some things like if you happen to be the president, then they kind of like put warnings in front of your tweets and stuff. There's stuff,
and which is new. That's new, right?
Yes, there's a few things that are new,
very new.
And if you go into like the trending hashtags section, it's usually an annoying dystopian lefty echo chamber. But if you, what you see is based on who you follow and stuff, and who they follow and what they share. So it's funny because my main Twitter feed is all very valuable to me. For like 80% of it is like, oh, this is good. I'm glad I'm seeing all this. This is good. I feel good about what I'm seeing. There's stuff I agree with. There's some stuff I don't agree with. There's just all this kind of stuff. And as soon as I go over into the search function, the trending hashtags is just like all this like chaos that I've been keeping out of my life. So for the most part, there's no reason to quit. But a lot of conservatives have been throttled back by Twitter, whether it's that kind of thing, whether they dead named someone. I called Caitlyn Jenner Bruce Jenner, and then, or in the case of this one rapper from the UK, Zuby, he called, some guy was like screaming at him or something, and he just responded, "Okay, dude." And turns out this person was a trans person. He got banned from Twitter, and then he got unbanned, but now he's on Parler as well. So there's a bunch of legit reasons to migrate to something better. And of course, I'm on, like when I post a little meme or something, that's going on 9 different platforms every time. I'm everywhere just because I'm testing them all out. I want to make sure what works, and you can't just say, "Oh, I checked it out, I don't like it." You got to like give it a good 6 months of active participation. And there's like one of those is probably about to drop off. But anyway, so I'm on Parler. A lot of people think it's there for free speech and stuff. However, we'll just throw this up on the screen here. Jack Murphy says, Parler has already suspended me for asking the CEO about his terms of service. Now, something in the terms of service, and by the way, this is a developing story, so don't just take this as the be-all and end-all of this thing. Just keep, if you want, see Jack at Jack Murphy Live on Twitter. Go follow him, see what's going on, if you really care what's going on with this whole Parler nonsense. But essentially, their terms of service have some kind of a something about lawsuits that basically, based on the content that is provided on there, you will not sue them because it's just a platform, it's not a publisher, and so they're not responsible for what content does appear there or not. And that's some big long thing about you will pay all their legal fees and do all this other stuff like that. It's just a little weird of like a, and then they have some weird stuff in there about what they're doing with their data, their privacy policy. It doesn't sound good, especially contrasted with like with Twitter. It doesn't sound any better, or it sounds worse in some cases, whatever. And by the way, I did not join Parler with any kind of illusions. I knew it was going to be conservative Twitter, Republican Twitter. That's literally all it is. And I guess that's fine. Might as well post stuff there if there's a different audience there, or if I'm a fish in a smaller pond and I can reach more people, because I'm not as like drowned out. But that's kind of what it is, and this is the teachable moment in my view, and when I'm not ranting about society and politics, culture, and all this kind of nonsense, whatever the hell we decide to rant on here. I'm in the digital world, the cryptocurrency kind of world, the decentralization world, and that's what most of these platforms I use are. And when I'm like, oh, Parler, what does it do different? Well, it's just different people run it. I'm like, it's a disaster. Already in my mind, it's a disaster. Most people know because they're like, it's better. They don't censor you. It's like, yeah, but they can. And if they want to, they will. Like, it's just a matter of time. Do you think Twitter was a radical pro-free speech platform until extremely recently? And unfortunately, most of its users, probably, or the most vocal ones, leaned left to a degree to where they were harassing Jack Dorsey to censor people and content and ban people for a long time. He's just like, dude, I don't want to get into it. I'm a pro-free speech guy, even though I agree with you guys on a lot of this stuff. And then finally, they're starting to relent and put some little things. And you don't think the same thing's going to happen quicker on Parler? So,
well, right, yeah. And this is the conversation is, there's section 230 exempt or whatever as if they're a platform. But when you get into this censorship and limiting what topics can be talked about, you say these certain things can't even be posted at all. Like, remember when Eric Charamella, which was, I guess, the whistleblower for against Trump. If you typed his name on Facebook, your post automatically disappeared. You couldn't post.
Oh yeah, Facebook has been worse than Twitter. I think the worst of
Facebook has been worse than Twitter. But the whole point being that the law that they use to claim exemption makes them a publisher instead of a platform, because once you start limiting, unless it's like a direct threat, right? Like if you're out there threatening violence and stuff like that, then they have the right to censor that. But if you're claiming to be a platform and you're limiting what people can talk about or how they can talk about it, then you're not a platform, you're a publisher. And then you're not exempt from that law anymore. And if you're not exempt from that law, then people can sue you for discrimination and for different things. So Twitter for a long time was this radical free speech platform, like you said, and but like Parler is, if it's controlled by people, the same thing's going to happen, because you're going to have a majority of the users who oppose or favor something, and then they're going to be kind of like forced into catering to their user base, or they're going to lose users. And if you lose users, you lose revenue, and then you don't have a business anymore.
Yeah, and your life sucks. You should end it.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So you have to please don't.
That was a little dark, sorry.
You're going to have to so the only alternative, the only real alternative is something decentralized.
And I'm still on the quest for a decentralized Twitter. There's a few that post stuff to a blockchain and things like that. There's a few that offer end-to-end encrypted messages. There's a few that let you so like Float is a very similar thing to Twitter that also has like a crypto Patreon stuff in there, and the people that run it are very anti-censorship and stuff like that. It is still just a regular platform that they could do that. I believe last time I interviewed the CEO, they were talking about being able to have a thing where you can run your own instance of it, and so that then you can kind of, if the company goes offline or whatever, you can still kind of run part of it. But I don't think that's implemented yet, so I'm not going to say that about that. There is something called Mastodon, which is basically like uber nerd Twitter. And basically, instead of Twitter running a whole server, running everything, different people run their own little specific instances that then, it's like a federated system where it's like a micro Twitter, but you can also talk to people across the pond on other micro Twitters and stuff. But it's a little bit of a difficult thing to deal with. It's a little bit difficult system. So yeah, there's no good Twitter right now. No good alternative. Soon, hopefully.
Yeah, soon, hopefully.
Yeah.
Oh, there you are. I lost your audio for a second.
Yeah, I turned it off because there's a blower outside or something.
Oh, is that what that is? I can hear it. Yeah. It sounds like a helicopter or a leaf blower or.
Yeah. Why don't you ramble for 5 minutes? Hopefully it goes away.
Oh, just ramble for 5 minutes. Here you go. Have open mic, Chris. So I mean, we're talking about Parler. I'm not going to join Parler. I'm just going to stick to, the devil I know is better than the devil I don't. And rebuilding audiences on different platforms doesn't appeal to me right now, especially if they're having problems with, certain things about, their terms of service and censorship. And if that guy literally like got banned from the platform already just for asking about the terms of service, that really screams to me like, okay, this is just a tyrant of a different brand, different flavor.
Now they said it was a glitch. Oh, it's CMO, it's a glitch and stuff. But he got it first.
Right, I saw that, and then I saw further down his thread, he was like, oh, they said it was a glitch, but then they actually banned me from the platform and I can't post at all.
And now he's on a phone call with him now that he's
Yeah,
sounding the alarm and stuff.
now
We'll
that
see.
he's following it up on
We'll
Twitter.
see how it
So
goes. But now it's just like, and by the way, I did have a few glitches on Parler with mostly on the site. The mobile app works better. The site, there was a couple comment glitches where I couldn't open a comment or the users weren't displayed. So I don't know if it's like, tinfoil hat. Where,
another big problem. I don't know if you another problem that there seems to be popping up is that there's people with these imposter accounts. So they're like, people are jumping over and joining using the Twitter handles of famous Twitter accounts.
How
like
did you know
Comfortably
I'm
Smug.
actually Tommy Lahren?
What's that?
I said, how did you know I'm actually Tommy Lahren?
Nah.
Just kidding, I'm not. I don't cosplay as
What
Tommy
was that
Lahren.
meme you showed me a meme on Saturday. What was it? It was hysterical. Tommy Lahren will no longer be
Or,
will,
well,
will
no,
no longer voice the character of Candace Owens.
yeah, that was pretty savage.
That was pretty savage. I am not a fan of either of those two conservatives, quote unquote.
Yeah, I
But
don't
I
know
mean,
Candace Owens well
going on
enough, but to finish that tangent, I don't know Candace Owens well enough to have too much of an opinion formed other than I disagree with stuff she says. I do like Tommy Lahren, despite she's just so odd, like angry. First off, she has a few more reasonable views than you expect, but she's just so like comically angry about stuff. I don't know. It just kind of, it's just like the angry, it's like, anyway, I'll tell you off camera who that reminds me of, but that's for another time. Anyway, so basically the hunt is on for a good decentralized alternative. I recently did an interview with the CEO of Library, which is the platform that you might see this on if it's not live. And it kind of goes really into like the levels of decentralization of stuff, that not only is the actual files, the data files backed up, not only is the references to that so you can actually find where to go without a centralized company, but some extra data, like for example, people who subscribe to you and your profile picture and your bio and stuff, that's all decentralized as well, so that the company can't take all that stuff down. So if you have like 1 million people following you and the company tries to censor you, can just like spin it up and those 1 million people are still following you. And like, that's a largely video platform. Now, if we get something like that on a Twitter, that would be great, because then you just can't be shut down. You don't have to worry about this stuff to begin with. So that's kind of the end of that part of the rant. Is it getting to time to wrap this thing up?
Yeah, we're real close. We're close to an hour, so
Yeah, might as well. So
58.5 minutes.
So usual rant. There's a donation for the crypto stuff. There's a subscribe button. I'm getting more subscribers on the Desert Links channel on YouTube, which is nice. And then, so you can see it, there's the Patreon. You got to throw Chris some bucks so he can. He has to medicate in order to perform this job here. And some of the beer is cheap, unfortunately. But if you want to see him cut Bud Light out of his life for favor of something better, balls in your court, Greg. Just kidding. Then throw him a couple bucks on that there Patreon there. Or do a manual Patreon, which is you just show up at his house with some beer and be like, here you go. No middleman fees. So anyway, make sure you subscribe and share this whole thing. We're going to keep on doing this. We're, 16 in? That's 17 weeks in because we missed one due to technical difficulties. But 16 of these in. We're going to keep going. Who knows? Maybe we'll even get this on lrn.fm. We'll see. All right. Peace, guys.